Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Matiazzo, and today's guest is a comedian, film director, screenwriter, author, and teacher of comedy masterclasses and screenwriting, the fabulous, iconic Tim Ferguson. Welcome to
my God, Carla, that is a build-up, man. You really built me up. I better be interesting.
Well, you've earned it, man. You've earned it.
Tulips. Grow tulips. That's already an interesting idea that most people wouldn't have. Apart from tulip growers, damn them 1,000 times.
Damn them. So obviously the listeners do not know that this is our second attempt at this episode because for whatever reason my device decided not to record. So
the last one broke Zoom. We broke Zoom, Carla. We snapped it in half.
We broke it. So I think we should start off just maybe a little summary, because usually the podcast goes from a first love to happy ever after and everything in between. So maybe I think we'll do a little summary to start with of what maybe you can remember and I can remember of that chat, little bits and pieces, and then we'll get into the new stuff. How does that sound?
Well, it all happened so fast. I mean, it was all happened. All I remember is there were loud noises, there were flashing lights, and someone was shouting. Maybe it was you, I don't know. But what great fun we had. Look, covering the basic details, my first love, I'm trying to remember because I had so many. Like I was...
You're a man about town.
Well, no, I was just a guy who fell in love with her all the time. Most of it was completely unrequited and unnoticed. Because a lot of people speak about their first love, and really they're just talking about the first person who looked at them and said, oh, I like you too. Do you really, really like me? Okay, I really, really, really like you.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tim.
Yeah, girls are really hard. They don't pick up messages. You know how women are supposed to be intuitive? That is bullshit. If women were intuitive, you wouldn't have to turn around to them when you're in your mid-30s and say, you do realise I was crazy about you when I was 17. Yeah. Couldn't you tell by the occasional look and the blinking? Women like to think that they're so intuitive about that stuff. You got to think, how many romances have you walked past without even knowing it was there? So, young lovers out there, you got to speak out. You have to embarrass yourself by saying,
be obvious.
Yeah, you have to say, I really, really like you, which is not saying I love you, because then you're right out there.
Yeah.
But, if you're 17 and you really, really, really like someone, for God's sake, say something or they will go with whoever has the car. Or the CD collection. Oh my God, CDs, how do they work? They will go with that person simply because they have facility in the world.
I think you're right, but you know what, Tim? That intuitiveness about who's interested or who's not, I still have no fucking idea. And I'm in my mid-30s. I've still got no fucking idea if somebody likes me or they don't. I wouldn't have a clue. Would not have a clue.
So You have to put yourself out there. You just got to keep saying, I really, really like you, even to the taxi driver on the way to one of your fantastic gigs, just to see if, the boomerang comes back. If it doesn't, if the taxi stops and he says, okay, it's time to get out, then, well, you get out and you get the next taxi. But you got to keep saying you like someone. And most of the time, I mean, you are likable. You're interesting, you're talented, you're glamorous, you're beautiful, you've got it all.
Thanks,
Anybody
Tim.
who doesn't like you, you're allowed to punch them in the face. If you've just said, I really, really like you, and they've gone, oh, well, I'm just from Adelaide, so I don't understand mixed signals like really and really, then you punch them in the face. And if they are from Adelaide, that guy will probably fall in love on the spot. He'll go, this is just like, you are like my Hindley Street. You are my Hindley Street on a Saturday night at about 4:30 when the cops and the dogs arrive. I love you.
So I get permission from you to punch someone in the face if they don't reciprocate.
He's just a guy from Adelaide. I'm sure he'll, if he's been to Hindley Street at any time of day, he's being punched by a random stranger. You might as just be the next one in line.
Yeah, this is true.
As you wish to continue.
It's funny that you mentioned the taxi driver thing, though. There was once an Uber driver that picked me up, like as in obviously he picked me up with the car, but yeah, we exchanged numbers and then he asked me out on a date and it was not good.
No, because he was always checking his phone to see if there was an Uber passenger who needed to be driven home. I mean, that's the thing. Sorry if you're an Uber driver, but you got to find something. What's it called? Oh, yeah, a career. At the moment, you've got a driver's license, and good on you, whoever the hell you are, male, female, tall, short. Well, let's leave the short people out of it because there's no point in making their life even harder. But, just because you're making money from Uber doesn't mean you can take someone like Carla, who I'm talking to, out on a date and then go, so 50-50, do I get a tip? No, it's not going to happen. You got to bring more to the table.
Yeah, we definitely did not have anything in common, to say the least. Really?
Well, that's not easy for you to find things in common.
Well,
because, like, you're a cabaret star. I can see behind you, dear listener, I can see that there's a whole rack full of bright, brassy, sparkly costumes. Over Carla's left shoulder, there's two guitars, looks like a mandolin or a violin. There's a singing microphone. There's a tambourine. Who has a tambourine apart from a serious creative? It's going to be hard for you to find someone who can match that,
Yeah, well, that's why I've been single so long, Tim.
Yeah, it's very hard. You can say, well, I'm just going to be less choosy and I'll settle. But then you look at the thing you've settled for and it's like if you settle for a bad rug in your lounge room. After a while, either you go or it goes.
That's true, yes. And I've done the settling. I've done those types of relationships. And, I can't do the settle just because I can't do it.
There's a great line, Carla, in Veep, where the Vice President of the United States, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, says,
oh, I love her.
Fake orgasms, I've faked entire relationships.
On that note, I had Jacques Barrett on the other day on the podcast, and we were talking about orgasms, right? And we were talking about the differences between relationships where, like, I've had a relationship where it was very clear that the women that he was with beforehand were faking all the orgasms, and I can't do that. So I think it was a shock to him. But
you're such a great singer. It'd be worth filming just once on your phone, just so you can look back and say, that is totally fake. And yet it sounds operatic. I gotta be me.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I'm not good at faking stuff, Tim. I'm not good at it.
Yeah. Well, you're genuine, yeah. I've faked orgasms in the past. It's harder for men.
How?
Well, you just go to a happy place and, make a bit of noise, a bit of a shout. And, it's just because, if it's not going to happen, like Toddy Goldsmith said on one of her TV shows, eventually, if it's not going to happen, you make a bit of a noise and everybody's okay for it all to stop. I'm talking after a couple of hours of putting in the work.
Yeah, fair. It's not like you did that after a 2-minute stint and you were like, I think it's time to.
that people would be checking for the evidence.
Yeah, correct.
Faking is it's very difficult for men. We had a TV segment that we did at Channel 9, which Channel 9, of course, never put to air. But it's a really good segment idea, which was the it's got a trademark and a copyright, dear listener, so don't get any ideas. It's basically like that guitar faking thing, but we thought the National Orgasm Faking Competition, where we'd get people out of the audience and they would fake orgasms. And obviously the women were much more practiced. It was like you were dealing with a professional. It was hard to know that these people shouting, yelping, and, squawking lyrics to songs that were written by Satan, whether they were having an orgasm or not. The guys, of course, were totally useless, which is why it was a comedy segment. But Channel 9 didn't have the guts, I think because, they're anti-orgasm.
That's a shame, because it's one of life's wonderful things. That's a real shame.
What does Woody Allen say? I've never had an orgasm I didn't like. Even my worst orgasm was still pretty hot.
Yeah, fair.
Although thinking about Woody's orgasms, we should probably just leave that there.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
But there you go. Good line.
It is a good line. But coming from him, there's also added layers to that, though, that you kind of don't want to think about.
Well, yeah, we're back to the layer of that bad carpet I was talking about before.
Do you think that your comedy career has been a benefit to your romantic journey? Because I know that I don't know any woman actually that would not have the guy's got to make me laugh on their list.
Right, yeah. Well, I'll answer the question that I've asked first, which is why? Why do women want a guy who makes them laugh? How long do they think he's going to make them laugh for? Haven't they met couples who've been married for 30 years? The woman isn't sitting there going, oh, stop, Neville, 30 years and you still make me giggle. The reason why, and it's a horrible reason, the reason why women want guys to make them laugh generally, or, a prospective partner, because it can be male, female, trans, LGB, whatever it is that the ability to make someone laugh shows a couple of things. The first is it means that you're morally, ethically compatible.
Right.
Which means, like, if they say, oh, I'll tell you a joke, and there's bad behaviour in the joke, if you laugh at the joke, it means that you've both got a similar understanding of where the line is, where the boundaries are. But it also means that most of the time a person who can make you laugh just in conversation is capable of surprising you, which means they're capable of tangential thought, thinking left field ideas, which if you go way back to cave times, is really handy because it's a good survival skill to be able to think tangentially, to say, hang on, that's a stick and a piece of twine. I shall make us a house, baby. People are interested in that because men are interested in finding, people, a partner or whatever it is, a date who makes them laugh, because it adds that surprise, it adds that spontaneity, and romance is at the heart of it spontaneous.
Yes.
There's no point in turning up on the 14th of February with a bunch of flowers and some chocolates, you might as well just say, and this is what I will be doing for the rest of my life. It's about surprising the other person by saying, guess where we're going?
Yes.
And taking them to a helicopter pad.
Oh, well, yeah, no,
it's also a good way to dump them. You go first, and while they've ascended, you just get out of there. But so it's the spontaneity and it's the left field thinking that people are looking for. And also, if you're not funny, you're just not trying, you're not thinking, you're not engaging your brain. Because everyone's got a sense of humour, and being funny is not that hard.
Well, look, I've encountered many people in my life, just as you have, Tim, and there's definitely some people that are not fucking funny. And even if they try, they're not funny.
Well, it's because they're dumber than you and they don't have the skill to surprise you. But if you put them with someone who's also, by dumber, I don't mean something bad, I mean moronic or stupid. You put them with someone equally doltish,
yes,
and they will make each other giggle because they're able more easily to set up surprises.
So do you think that's related to somebody's IQ? I read somewhere that if people are a certain distance apart in IQ, then they're just not going to meet on any level with anything, really.
Yeah, because either one of you always feels completely outclassed, and I've been in one of those where I just felt like a complete idiot. I didn't know all the stuff she was talking about. Mm-hmm. And so you're just there, you're just hanging around admiring this highly clever person. And it works the other way. You can get bored just because someone is one of those moronic, stupid, doltish, otherwise known as outright people that I mentioned before. There's a reason why they call them conservative. They conserve everything, including their mental energies.
That's true. Yeah, I have to say, if I am not able to connect on an intellectual, emotional and physical level, like the physical stuff's is not going to happen if you can't engage, unpack, analyze, laugh. Like if we can't get there on those things, then nothing's going to happen.
Why would you want to look into someone's eyes if you know there's not much there? It's like, look, you might as well say, look, leave me with your photograph because you are quite handsome. Leave me with your photograph for the evening. That should be enough.
Have you ever been in that situation where you're like, I like the look of you, but fuck your or whatever?
Oh, yes. I mean, everybody has. But a lot of the time with pretty people, it's because they don't often have to try.
Yes.
Because people say, come out on a date. If they say, would you like to go on a date? Everybody always says yes. Everybody always says you look great. Everybody's always going to say, what a fantastic dinner, because all everybody wants is to see the person naked. You quite often find it's a bit like professional swimmers, Olympic swimmers. Jesus, I've spent some time with those people, and I've got to say, I mean, it's amazing what they do.
Yes.
But for conversation, you are talking to someone who spends 8 hours a day blowing bubbles. So they look fantastic.
Yeah,
and
right.
Their achievements are extraordinary, and their strength and their ability to push their pain threshold. Like they have a long list of extraordinary things until you say so. Are there any paintings that you prefer? Then that's, so you can't have everything, but it's, I have a partner from heaven. In fact, I never use the word partner. What am I saying that for? People who call the person they're in love with a partner, that's what you call your labradoodle.
Business associate, yeah.
Yeah, business associate. Yes, so this is the partner with whom I see naked. It's like this mate I had who would introduce his girlfriend, he only had one girlfriend, as his friend.
What? Why? Was he embarrassed of her?
Because he's a dickhead. And then one day, Richard Feidler reminded me of this the other day. He said, I remember you got sick of it. And when he introduced his girlfriend to someone and said, "This is my friend," you said, "Your friend who you are fucking." Every time he went all awkward. It's like they've been going out for 2 years. Like,
oh my God.
You're not fooling anybody. But of course, it fell over because, you know, if you've got someone who's who's afraid to say, for example, "This is Carla, she is my lover." If they say, "This is my partner," not only do we shake hands and arrange breakfast, but, you know, all the other stuff. It's like people got to stop saying partner. It's dry. It was invented because people didn't want to put a name on romance.
Do you know what I also think it is, Tim? I remember distinctly in my early 20s, the transition of people calling each other girlfriend and boyfriend and then transitioning into partner. I think some people felt more mature saying partner. I fucking hate it. And even in the Sex and the City movie, which I'm sure you've watched many times, Tim.
I saw it once. Every guy in the world prefers Charlotte. Find a guy who prefers any of the other three, and that's not the guy you want.
See, I always thought I was a Charlotte, Tim. I always thought I was a Charlotte. But I don't know now.
Wear that on your T-shirt. But sorry, you were speaking. Go on.
And even in the Sex and the City movie, when Carrie refers to Big as her boyfriend, he finds that really uncomfortable, which, because they were, I don't know how old they were, 40s or whatever, I'm not sure why that was an issue. It's interesting that you reach a certain age and some people feel like, oh, we've got to use partner because girlfriend, boyfriend's just for little people.
Haven't they heard of lover?
See,
what
I
is
think,
wrong with these people?
Yeah, correct. But I think people find that confronting.
It's a bit too gushing.
Yes.
Oh, she's my lover. He's my lover. Yeah. Well, you know, chew on it and bite it off, people. For God's sake, what are you in it for? I mean, when you're introducing a person with whom you are in love, you start bloody acting like it. If you call them your partner, then you can set the timer to the day when they say, well, it was great having you as a partner, but I really got in it for the love and the romance.
I think that's gorgeous.
It was great going to social events and occasionally being naked. Like I introduced my beautiful Canadian wife as this is my beautiful Canadian wife, or my darling bride who comes from the northern, you know, fields of Canada. So straight away people are interested. You've already added a topic. I never introduce Stephanie as this is my partner because that just makes us seem like a couple of people who have settled.
Yes.
You know, and it's whereas if somebody introduced you, you know, as what you are, the person that they love, and you know, a bit of your bio I use from Canada just because it shows that Stephanie is rational and sane and fun, because that's the racist assumption about people from Canada.
Yes. I was going to ask you why you added that. Yeah.
It's okay to be racist about Canadians. I mean, they're so polite. They're never going to complain.
Oh, poor Stephanie. Oh, Tim. I don't think I've heard many men introduce their women with such descriptive, beautiful language.
Well, and it's not that exciting. You know, if you stop and think about it, well, it is right. She is very beautiful. She is Canadian, and she is his darling bride. Like, if you break it up, there's only a few words in it. It's because men, you know, I don't know what's wrong with guys. You know, I was always far more demonstrative just because it gets you further into a conversation than going, yeah, how about those tigers? Unless they're real tigers, I'm not fucking interested. How about those tigers up against the Collingwood team? That would be interesting. It's like, now you've got my attention. Eagles, real eagles up against guys from Collingwood. Like, I want to see that video.
Tim, there's some bravery in that introduction because that exposes not only you, but also your wife. And I'm speaking generally from my experience. Guys don't want to show that emotion that they gush over their wife and, you know.
Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because they don't actually have those emotions.
Oh.
That's why they're like, I don't know how to, they'll, you know, you've got to get them really drunk before they will say, I love you. And if they're drunk enough, they'll say that to anybody who's nearby.
True.
You know?
Why do you think that is?
A guy who says, you know, this is my partner, this is my friend. I had another friend who said, who would introduce his girlfriend with whom he lived as his flatmate.
What a dick.
Sometimes it's just because they're trying to keep their options open.
Yes, that's what I think too. I think that's so right.
So if you, dear listener, are in a couple and, you know, whoever you're going out with can't call you something nice when they introduce you, you should just give them the dumping talk and see if they cry. Just as a test. Just start by saying something really nice. You know, I really, really like you. Yeah. And I think you've got so much to offer. Yeah. But, and then after you say but, leave a big pause and you'll be able to see either hope in their eyes or the destruction of their very soul. And if you see like their eyebrows go up because they're expecting, oh, hang on, here we go, I think I'm being dumped, I didn't even do anything, then you might as well finish the sentence and say, you haven't reached your KPIs, so I'm going in another direction.
Speaking of moving forward, I've had some interviews where you speak about you moved a lot as a kid. Do you think that shaped your outlook and your bravery in the way that you converse and interact with other people, Tim?
What? Yeah, that's a very good question. I'd never been asked that one, but I think it must have. Because part of it is if you keep going to different schools. I went to 9 schools.
Wow.
We lived in 7 different houses. We were always on the move. I wasn't being thrown out of schools. We were just a family that always kept moving.
Yes.
Because my dad was a journalist and mum was a teacher, so they could go anywhere.
Great.
So what it meant was that when you got in trouble from a teacher, it's kind of okay because after Christmas we get new teachers, people who have no memory of whatever it was.
That's brilliant.
If there are bullies at one school, well, don't worry, because after Christmas holidays,
It'll be somewhere else.
There's another bunch of people. So, yeah, so I don't mind saying things that might embarrass other people, like, this is the woman I love, and we're here tonight just because I love hanging around her.
Oh.
Her name is Stephanie. And, if they want to feel uncomfortable or nervous or feel like I've got my head up my ass, they're perfectly welcome to do it because, like Canadians, they'll never say anything to my face, and that's all you need to worry about.
Yes, yeah. And that's a reflection on them, not you, though. That's introspective stuff that they have to do themselves as to why they do feel uncomfortable for you being so open and just stating facts. That's on them. Yeah,
that's on them. And they never say anything. And maybe afterwards they'll say, geez, that Tim, he lays it on a bit thick. But then it's like, by then they've had a 5-minute chat with Stephanie and they can see why I'm paddling so hard. So it's, bugger them. But
that's right.
And it's not just an Australian thing. People talk about Australian males being so stunted. Go to Tehran and ask guys, what do you think of your wife?
Mm-hmm.
Or go to London or go to anywhere in the Soviet Union.
Right.
And say, so, your girlfriend, what's she like? And they will say the Russian word for partner or my comrade,
right.
My girl comrade. Men are all the same. They're emotionally stunted because really they're not supposed to be talking about feelings. They're just supposed to be quietly hunting.
So how come you're different then, Tim? How come you're able to be unique in that aspect?
Well, simply because I don't care. Because after Christmas, there'll be a new bunch of friends. Like I'm in show business as you are, and quite often you form really intense bonds with people, like we did, like a Rocky Horror Show. And it went for months and months and months, and you form very intense bonds that evaporate almost instantly once you have your final show. Or when you're making a TV show or making a movie, it's the same thing. And so after a while, it becomes a bit of a pattern, which is why, it's very difficult to have relationships with actors.
Yeah.
Because they're already thinking of their next gig.
Correct. So how did you then, Tim, because you moved around a lot, then I guess that was kind of carried through, and correct me if I'm wrong, carried through in your career as well, because you do the festivals, you travel around doing your shows. How do you maintain and I was talking to George Capignaris about a similar thing the other day too. How do you maintain a relationship? How did you even get to be married, because you're touring so much? How does that happen? How does that work?
It helps to be obsessed with someone. You just have to be just obsessed enough. Not too obsessed, so you're hiding in the bushes. After all, they are your bushes and it's your house. But you have to be obsessed enough with somebody so that you are, as often as possible, checking in.
Right.
What happened today? How are you going? You've got to, and you need it to be a natural thing. After a while, people get used to the fact that when you're on the road, you call them 5 or 6 times a day.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. And I guess
they don't see anything bad about it. Oh my God, you're pestering me, or is that you outside in the bushes? But after a while, your partner. See how bad it sounds, your partner, or the person whom you adore,
yes,
will kind of get used to it and say, oh, well, Tim's off in, say, coming to Adelaide for the next Fringe. You're away for a couple of weeks. And it's kind of nice to get a text here, a call there.
Yeah. I have to say my experience has been when you mention that, when I say that I'm a cabaret artist, and then you explain, excluding COVID, obviously, you explain what that entails, 90% of the dudes are like, how can you expect to have a relationship with somebody if you're not there 100% of the time? It's like, so you're telling me that the guys that do FIFO work where they go away for 3 weeks and then come back for 2 weeks, they're not entitled to a relationship either? Oh, no, that's different. I've always thought that the going away and coming back is a benefit, because then you get to really cherish the time that you are together as a couple. But it seems that I am rare with that perspective in the state in which I reside.
Oh, it's probably that you probably get the same question everywhere, which is, I don't quite understand why you would ask that, because, like you say, it's a sexist sort of thing. Like, it's okay for a guy to go up to Pilbara for 3 weeks and then come back for 2, or go out to, a oil rig in the ocean, same thing. But for a girl to do it, it's like, well, what's the guy supposed to do? Well, what do guys do when they're on an oil rig? Oh, that. So that's quickly taken care of. And don't they like being in their shed? I mean, you could do it the other way, to say, actually, no, you're right. If I'm with a guy, I'm around him 100% of the time. And if he goes out, I go out with him. If he goes to footy, I am there with him. What do they want? Guys are always edging for keeping the door open for their little Wrigleys.
Yeah.
To go and make other little babies. Just even subconsciously, unconsciously, they're always looking for the angles. That's why guys are okay with using the word partner. It's because they're still checking the exits. Don't put up with it, people.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tim. I'm with you. I'm totally with
Gay
you.
guys are the same. Like, I'm not just talking hetero guys. It's a male thing.
How do I, as a female who's heterosexual, how do I navigate that then, Tim?
Christ, I don't know, Carla. I mean, I wouldn't suggest online dating as the place, because whatever people say in their profiles is guaranteed bull twang. I heard a story where a guy had a brilliant, this is a true story, a guy had a brilliant profile. Mm-hmm. He did hang gliding, spear fishing, was a chess champion, and all these great things. And this lady went on a date with him, and at the end of the date had to say, "Look, I'm sorry, Dave, but you're really quite boring. How could you be boring with all those things?" And he said, "Oh, I was being sarcastic. I was being funny."
Yeah.
I mean, you have to look at my photograph to see I'm not an interesting person.
Yes.
So you cannot, because, you can't go trusting that. You can't, there's no point in having a list, because, every romantic comedy that Shakespeare wrote is about, someone has a list of the perfect partner, usually who their father, the king, wants.
Yes.
That's not going to happen. Just sort of have to throw it open. And like we were talking about before, is when you think there's something there, then you strike.
Yeah.
And you say how you feel. Otherwise, someone else is going to cotton on that this person is an engaging person who's interested in, whatever it is. But, most men are crap. That's the problem of every heterosexual woman. But the good thing is most heterosexual women are crap as well.
Yes, this is true.
Which is why so many of them are happily, partners. But for someone like you, you're so vivacious, you don't necessarily have to find someone who's equally vivacious. Sometimes the perfect partner might be somewhere who just shuts up and adores you.
No.
Oh, you want them to be vivacious too? Does that go so you can show them off at the footy when real tigers are fighting against real eagles?
Guess what, lovers? The Catchalorette, There's Always a Catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30. Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
In my cabaret show, there's a section where I do speak to rom-coms and Disney and how they have influenced my journey in love and a lot of people's journey in love. And I talk about the danger sometimes of especially the Disney princess. And as a little girl, I loved Mulan because I saw Mulan as a woman taking charge of the situation, whereas the other princesses were not. So what are your thoughts on rom-coms and Disney then in regards to how people develop relationships or think relationships should unfold?
Yeah, good question. Look, they're kind of two very different things in a way. I mean, one has comedy is half of it. And a romantic comedy, say Notting Hill or whatever, there'll be a new one out there somewhere. There always is. There's an Australian one about a lady who runs a restaurant. There's a new one. It's on Netflix, I think. Mm-hmm. There's a thing that happens at the end of them that makes them, in a way, the same as Disney.
Right.
And what it is that in a romantic comedy, I was taught by all the greats who write those things, as soon as the lovers kiss, and it's a true love kiss, finally, after all the stuff, and I told Father, I'm leaving the kingdom. I'm coming with you because it's you, all that stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as they do the big kiss, the music rises, the camera gets in a drone and takes off. The film is over. We are not interested in seeing them wake up the next morning because they'll be nowhere near as pretty. They'll be a bit scratchy. Someone will have said, you could have mentioned the herpes. Like there'll be real life takes over.
Yes.
Which is the comedy. The comedy of Cinderella is what happens the next day after they're married.
Mm-hmm.
He wakes up and she's cleaning because she's right. Cinderella. That's her nature. That's the one thing she's confident about. I'm really good at cleaning. And you've got Prince Charming and he's married to a cleaning queen. And the same thing, say, at the end of Cinderella, the movie made by Disney. As soon as they get back together and they have true love's kiss, like it's over, because we don't want to accept that the next day it's going to be bad.
Correct.
Because the next day it's going to be real, because it's fantasy. In a romantic comedy, the romance is bull twang. It's complete rubbish. Julia Roberts is going to fall in love with some guy who runs a bookshop simply because he stutters a lot and is kind of amusing and looks a bit like Hugh Grant, who's fairly sort of, normal. It's not going to happen in the real world. You can't see Jennifer Aniston going to a bookshop and saying, whoa, wait a second. Oh my, whoa, say that again, you English guy. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I love Jennifer Aniston. She's a babe. I love her.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful actor. But look at the guys she goes out with. They're billionaires. They're Brad Pitt. They're, she's not going to go to a bookshop and fall in love with some guy.
Yeah, correct.
Says, yes, the magazine section is just to the back there. So it's fantasy, which is kind of what you're talking about, really. At the heart of it is that there is a fantasy about romance. But I think it's, life is about making the fantasy work with reality to maintain, like you can have a big glossy idea of who somebody is in your head. And though it may not be realistic, when you first fall in love, there's no reason to discard it entirely. It's always good to remember, that's right, you are a scientific genius. Well, I'm not really, but you did 2 years at uni, and that's enough for me.
But do you think that there is a little bit of danger down the track being in love with the idea of somebody rather than who they actually are, or the potential of someone, or the potential maybe of someone? The only difference is I think you get better at picking the difference and knowing the difference. Do you think when you start to realize what the difference is, that's again a reflection on your own self-development and how you've shed certain rose-colored glasses or lenses that you may have had in the past? And you get smarter, you get better instincts. And also you get to be more wary of your own hormonal explosion, saying, oh my God, this is the one, when you've got to think maybe in 6 weeks I'll be thinking, oh my God, this is a one. This is one of the ones. So how did you work out then that Stephanie was the one?
We're ridiculously compatible. She's very smart. She's very Canadian. She's very rational. She's from a tiny town in the north of Ontario.
Right.
So she has like really strong values, which, working in comedy and television, it was like, what, are these real? Are you really like this? And so there was, I think Stephanie provides a good anchor for me. And in a funny way, I provide the same for her. Because really, with all of what I do for a living, at the end of the day, what I can provide for her is that I will not change from day to day. I wake up in the same mood every day. From a partner is what you need. If you're the kind of person who wakes up in a different mood every day, you should not expect a relationship to last very long because people get the shits with that.
Yeah.
Like, what am I dealing with now?
And it causes anxiety, Tim, too. Because I've been in relationships like that. It causes anxiety, and then it causes you to have to adjust and react and maybe not be your best self in that relationship because you're always deflecting or trying to do the dance that person needs you to do.
Yeah, just so that they, get back on an even keel. That stuff's really dull, and, people just have to get themselves together.
Mm-hmm.
And they can say, oh, it's my hormones. Well, then start working on it. Start your day with a walk, you fools. Start your day with eating or drinking something different, because whatever it is that's putting you out of sorts is something usually external that you're, doing, that you're eating, that you're absorbing. If you always get up and watch TV and emotionally react to the news, stop it.
Stop watching the news. Stop it.
Yeah. Just don't do it.
My dad's a culprit of that. He watches the news way too much at night time. He'll watch it on one channel, then he'll watch it on another channel. And then I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Because he's obviously, I'm Italian and French, right? There's something about, because Dad's still Catholic. I'm not anymore, but I was brought up with Catholicism.
You can't scrub that shit off. I'm the same,
There's something about, I think, Catholicism, guilt and fear that links in together. So I think that feeds my dad on a certain level. They're watching the news, the same fucking stories on every channel, said in a different way. And it does make my dad really anxious, but he doesn't get out of that bubble. That's a habit that he's formed,
Yeah. And, if you're in a relationship and you think that, your moods go up and down due to external influences like the news, just don't watch it so much. The news will be there. Sky News does not sleep.
Yeah.
They just keep going, and, just watch Sky at night for a nice bit of comic relief. I love watching Sky. I love watching Fox News just to see how the other 0.1 are thinking.
How would you say that your relationship with your wife has changed over the years? Have there been, obviously there's the obstacle of MS that would have changed some dynamic within your marriage? Because you said you wake up every day in the same mood, and that's awesome and brilliant, and it helps obviously Stephanie to live an easier life and you to live an easier life. But I'm sure there were obstacles, especially with MS, that you guys had to do a bit of a shift somewhere.
Yeah, there are things that we just can't do.
Yeah.
Where, if Stephanie wanted to go to the Opera House to watch a show, well, the Opera House is full of stairs. And you can, I've done shows at the Opera House, and you can, get to a venue. Mm-hmm. But you've got to go under the Opera House. You've got to wait for the security guy. You've got to, They get you in a lift, and it's like being a rat in a maze, and then finally go, here I am. So there are some practical things we just say we just can't do that. But on the whole, it's because with MS you can be quite lucky because the symptoms sort of are like. They're like a growing tide.
Right.
So, it's very slow. So like my left hand, despite all the exercise I do with it, doesn't really respond as well as it should. But this has happened over the last 5 years.
Right. When was the first time you noticed something was a bit off, Tim? When did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, when I was a teenager.
Wow.
Things were a bit off. And they'd go offline, then they'd come back online.
Right.
So in terms of like my thing is like I'm in a big clumping wheelchair that's got to be heaved around the place.
Mm-hmm.
But on the whole, we sort of take that stuff into account.
Right.
And we've learned to take it into account and not make mistakes like turn up somewhere in summer where there's no air conditioning, because that will turn me, as it does with many people with MS, it heats your brain.
Right.
And things, when they're hot, expand. And so your nerves expand, and then it turns me into a glass of water. But you learn to adapt to that stuff. We certainly both wish that we'd had more time where I'm leaping around, bounding up and down stairs, but bounding up and down stairs is, you don't need it. It's about as good as it sounds.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's also a testament, obviously, Tim, to who you are, because I had a family member who had MS.
All right.
It was sad to see her light diminish, if that makes sense, from quite an early stage. It's beautiful and wonderful to see that you don't seem to be carrying that just because you've got MS.
Yeah, it depends on the symptoms people experience.
Sure.
There's one that's bad, which is fatigue, which may have been, what your relative experienced. Basically, it's what it sounds like, is that it's not that you feel tired, it's that your muscles lose their strength.
Right.
And so you're awake, you're capable of talking, but your brain isn't talking to the muscles the way it should. There's nothing wrong with the muscles. It's just that they're not hearing the orders that your brain is giving them. And so quite often, just feeling that fatigue of not being able to lift your head,
right,
not being able to sit up straight, not being able to get out of a bed, not being able to pick up a coffee cup, can have an enormous amount of emotional wear and tear.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's...
I would imagine it'd be frustrating, Tim.
Yeah, it'd be very frustrating. And there are things I've got about MS that... are momentarily frustrating, but only when I forget that, I can't just turn up at the Opera House. I can't just do those things. But so sometimes with people with MS, it can depend on what their symptoms are, because those symptoms can be very dispiriting. And so the thing of, like I said before, just go out for a walk is not going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's the reason why I stay buoyant is partly out of stubbornness, Carla. Talking with someone about this yesterday, and he's got MS as well, and he said, well, I do all the things I do simply out of bloody mindedness, and also to set an example for employers.
Yeah.
Employers can look at him and go, geez, he's busy. How can he be doing it? Oh, and, gradually they'll start to understand, so maybe having a disability is no reason why you shouldn't give someone a job. So he's very stubborn about it.
Yeah, that's a brilliant perspective. I love that. Thanks for talking about that.
That's why I do all this touring. We're making movies. I'm bringing a show to Adelaide Fringe.
Yay!
Which is, well, I don't know if Adelaide's going to like it. It's going to hurt their feelings, Carla.
Okay, it's fine.
It's called Smashing Life, and it's going to be a motivational show.
Oh, brilliant.
Like Anthony Robbins?
Yes.
Yeah, because what does no comedian in Australia have the guts to do? Sell out. So I'm going to be bringing this show, which is called Smashing Life, Motivation for Idiots. And it's a new kind of motivation. Of course, you know, I've seen Anthony Robbins, I read the books, and all the other ones, The Delicate Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and all those things that everybody reads.
Yes.
But this show is about how all of that is bullshit. You know, A Delicate Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Oh, good. Tell that to the poor puppy. This poor puppy who's got cancer. You don't give a fuck. Oh, well, that's good. Puppy's got cancer and he's also voting for One Nation. You know, his soul is completely lost. There is a different way to look at life, because if you look at motivation, what do they always say? It's like, you got to focus, Carla.
Yes.
If you focus on your dreams, you got to dream bigger, Carla. So you got to focus, you got to dream, you got to see it, you got to want it, you got to try and go and get it. And if someone says you can't have it, you got to go around, you got to come back. It just goes on and on. It's bloody exhausting. This motivation stuff goes against human nature.
Right.
Human nature is where we just want to be lying, watching Troy McClure replays, eating pork chops. So how do we put the human nature, which is basically lazy, it's greedy but lazy, how do we deal with that and still get shit done? And that's what my show is going to be about. So
sounds fucking awesome.
Put away the exhausting, motivating stuff. It's too bloody hard.
It is.
How do we get it fast and easy? And you can't remember anyway. See it. What's the second one? See it. Want it. Buy it. No, don't buy it. Oh, shit. You know, there are 7 habits of successful people. Well, I got confused after the first 3. I can't remember. The human brain is not capable of remembering 7 things. That's why we usually keep the number of children to 6. There was another one around here, but we left them at the dam.
That sounds brilliant. That show sounds really good, Tim.
And the idea is people will feel motivated at the end of it, because it'll be all about, in a funny way that makes them laugh, giving them like simple, practical, what you can do when you go home.
Yes, brilliant.
You know, and it's okay because it's nothing. Go home and do fuck all.
How did you come up with that idea, Tim?
Well, it's kind of the third in our trilogy of shows. And the first one was, oh my God, I've got MS. And the second one was oh my God, I have MS, and this is how I do what I do. And the third one is about the audience. This is how you can do what I do with your fancy walking legs and your ability to raise your left arm above your ear.
Yes. Yeah. So no one's got an excuse then, really, Tim?
Yeah. And also that you can do it without effort. You know, if you want a partner, well, don't try so much. You know, just sit there, go for a bit of a walk, make sure you're kind of healthy, presentable, read something in the paper every morning, and just put yourself out there. Go to a pub and sit there and talk to the first bozo who comes up to talk to you, because their friend might be the one. It's, you know, particularly for Australians, what a lazy country. We should be running the South Pacific. Well, because look at us. We've got all the land. We've got all the gold. We've got all the coal. We should be running the South Pacific. But, oh, no, you know, it's too much work. We should be having revolutions. There's no communist revolution in Australia. It's just too bloody hot. What are we going to do? You got to go and burn down the parliament. What, in December? I mean, I'm being facetious.
I know.
But facetious is a word my mother used to use, and I've never quite known what it is. But it's a good way of getting out of, you know, difficult corners that I've talked my way into.
So speaking of your mum, what example did your parents give you when it comes to love and relationships? What did you learn from their relationships, and what would you do and what would you not do?
Yeah, they were kind of crazy about each other.
Aww.
They they were both terribly good looking, both very talented, very gregarious people who, they would, hold hands. They enjoyed each other's company all the time. It was always a very practical kind of romance that they managed to maintain, which is why they could always be under the pressure of dealing with new people, new jobs, new cities, new towns, is that they you could put them anywhere and they could, talk their way out of trouble with the cops. No problem, any country in the world.
Do you know how they met, Tim?
I'm not sure how they met, but they did break up. And then Dad sent Mum a letter from Rome.
Wow.
And I don't know what the letter said, but it worked. And the next thing you know, they were getting married.
Oh, so obviously you were around for the second time that they got married, I'm assuming.
Oh, no, I mean, this is before we were born. Like they were kind of boyfriend and girlfriend, and he went off to Rome, and then it was like, oh, hang on, who was that girl? So he sent her a love letter, and, she went to Rome, and that was it.
That's
it was glamour. It was the glamour of the time. Now going to Rome is like blowing your nose.
Well, not right now.
Naples, you go there, there's a whole bunch of Aussies. This was back in the time where you'd go to Rome. It was just full of Italians.
Yes.
People who were running away from Germany for bad reasons, and that was it. Now you go to Italy, you are lucky to see an Italian.
Yeah, this is true.
The smart ones have all, they've all gone off to Mallorca, having a great old time.
So have you ever written a love letter?
I don't think so. No, I think love poem.
Yes.
Maybe. No, I'm too talky.
You're too talky.
Yeah, I don't need to sort of sit down and go, let me compose my stupid male thoughts. I'm much happier just going, blah, 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 blah. You're amazing. Put these on.
So then how did you woo Stephanie then?
Well, Stephanie took quite some wooing, actually. And I've never had to work so hard.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, just took wooing because she, being from Canada, had no idea who I was or am. Don't you know who I was? It's a great way to get into nightclub. And so I kind of had to, beg and plead and, ask for dates and ask for another one. And it took a while just because, she was cautious. She's from small town Canada and not like the typical modern person who says, well, of course, we have sex first. And after that, if the conversation is interesting, maybe we'll talk to each other again.
Yeah.
It seems to be, I had to sound old-fashioned, but really stupid in terms of putting a relationship together. If only because, the first time anybody has sex, it's not the best.
Correct.
There are things and noises and, is my elbow going in the wrong area? It's like, that's, maybe it's because I'm old that I'm going, these Tinder people. Like, sure, people will get laid, but I don't know if they're going to meet someone at a cafe, immediately go to the public toilets, have sex and say, my God, you are the one.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know. I have to be able to trust somebody and feel comfortable before any intimacy happens. So I take my time with getting to know somebody before that even eventuates. So I don't even know how people do it. I don't know how people just go straight to that.
It depends on your situation. I know one woman who's a single mum and she says, look, I haven't got time for anything.
Yeah, right.
So, if I'm feeling horny, I will go on Tinder and someone will take care of that problem.
Yeah, okay.
So it's high five, pull your chewing gum back off the disability bathroom wall, chuck it in your mouth and off you go. So but it's that seems, you know, a very practical way of using it. To be looking at it as a stepping stone to anything else, maybe setting a person up for, you know, having their heart broken, because it will be like, well, I know we had sex, but I just don't feel that way about you, is a funny way to have a romance.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone's able to do it their own way, but it's, it doesn't seem, if you're after romance, it's probably not the smartest way to go about it.
I totally agree.
Like, good on them for, you know, and that's what disability bathrooms are for. Most of the time there's no one in there. But it's, yeah. So, you know, good on them for having a shot and giving it a go. But, you know, there's, most of the time there will be tears.
Yeah. And I've never felt comfortable on that medium. I've never felt, and you can't really tell who somebody really is through that. I need to be able to, you know, see, smell, hear that person in real life for anything to even, like for a conversation to even ignite, let alone having to rely on online dating. It's just not a comfortable medium.
It's also worth thinking, you know, if someone is a jealous kind of person, why on earth would they go on an online date?
Unpack
because
that.
Well, it's pretty guaranteed that the person you're dating has gone on lots of dates, and that may weigh upon your mind as you get to know each other. It's like, hang on, how many hundred? Oh, look, baby, you know, they didn't mean anything. Yeah, but I think things mean something up till you get to 300, surely. Just, I don't know, people should be careful about that if they've got a jealous kind of nature.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Tim. Yeah, I think you're right there.
You know, it's just, sometimes you've got to allow for human nature. That's what my live show's about. You've got to allow for the way your brain works. It's all very well for Anthony Robbins, billionaire, to tell you, you know, all you got to do is just do more push-ups and focus. It's like, great. Do I do that in the back of the limousine? Yes. Oh, hang on, you know.
To shift gears a little bit, Tim, the last question I will ask you, and thank you again so much for coming on board today.
Ooh.
How have you been able to sustain the comedy trio group that you have been in for so many years? How do you guys keep working together without somebody trying to kill somebody?
We just keep failing at the killing. We're just not really organised. It's all about that focus. We're back to focus. You've got to really see it, want it, and go for it. The Doug Anthony All-Stars, we kind of had two lives. One was the first one, and then one was, I think, from 2013, 14, you know, we started touring again. We did 4 or 5 national tours.
Wow.
And that's every dog and pony show in the country. We went to Toowoomba. And, of course, up to the UK for a tour, and then back again to the UK for a tour. I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do next. They're very old men, and they don't have my energy and verve, my lust for life. So I'm not sure what else we can do apart from do shows in hospital wards. But keeping a creative relationship together is always tricky, because there's always give and take, and also, you know, partners have to be taken into account as well, because if it's just you, then you can be at home in bed watching TV and working, thinking up ideas, practicing harmonies in your head. Whereas if you've got to work with people, then you've got to be there. And you've got to spend a lot of hours in a day, so that by the time you do a show tonight, you've done everything and you've gone through it all. So it can play hell with relationships. But, you know, most of the time you just hope whoever you're working with, that nobody is a narcissist who thinks that the whole, enterprise revolves around them, because they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Well, it's a testament to you three that you guys have been able to not lose your shit. I'm sure there were times where behind the scenes you guys had disagreements. How did you navigate that stuff?
Oh, like anybody, you don't talk about it until everybody explodes. You let it go by, and then occasionally you will say, by the way, and get stroppy. But it may not be a problem. I don't know if the Doug Anthony All-Stars really have anything else to say to the world apart from to get stuffed. But, because it badly needs that.
Yes.
But I don't know if there's any material that we could do that wouldn't get us in the paper with a lot of very tense and terse letters. I went there and it made me feel uncomfortable. That is the power phrase.
But isn't that the point of art, to make people feel something? So if they do feel uncomfortable, then that's part of feeling.
Yeah, not anymore though. A letter to a festival organisation saying, this art exhibition made me feel uncomfortable. They are the words that organisations fear more than anything.
Oh, that's such a shame.
So the world's going to have to get past that. What we need is a bloody good war. The way people are carrying on about COVID, I know Melbourne's been in a terrible place because they've all been locked up, but they have not been locked up while planes are dropping bombs on. They've not been locked up while warships are encroaching upon Melbourne's water.
Yeah.
This has been a crisis that everybody's had to deal with as an individual, as opposed to a crisis you've got to deal with as an individual, but also as a nation.
Right.
As you're trying to survive. So, it's, which is why as soon as the crisis ends and everybody is free to, leave their houses, the mood will just bounce up, as opposed to in wartime when it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's worth thinking about that. Like, things are bad. How could they be worse? Oh, yeah.
Do you think that comes from Catholicism a little bit? I remember my nonna always used to say, if I was upset about something or something bad was going on in my life, she'd be like, think about the fact that there are people that are in worse situations.
Yeah, which can work in the short term, unless you're like 8 years old and your mother's saying, eat those Brussels sprouts, there are starving children in Botswana. It's like, well, you send it to them. People, if you're going to feel better by just comparing yourself to the lot of other people, then that can be a dwindling resource of emotional fortitude.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because I was getting my teeth cleaned a few weeks ago at the dentist, and there was a grandfather and his grandchild with him, and grandchild would have been early teens, and she was going through her phone looking at the different news articles, and I can't remember exactly what she mentioned, but she made a comment on the fact that the news is always depressing and always sad and all that kind of stuff. And her grandfather's explanation, his response was, the news is there for you to feel better about yourself, that you are not in the place of the people that are going through the horrendous shit. I chimed in and said, sorry, just overhearing this conversation, do you really think that that's why the news is there? Firstly, he was dumbfounded that I interrupted a private conversation with him and his grandchild. But I was really worried that that was sending his grandchild the wrong message. Not just about the news, because the news is there for a whole myriad of reasons.
Bad granddad. The news is supposed to be there to inform people. Did he mention that to the kid, is to tell you what's happening in the world?
No.
Because otherwise you'd just put on the same, 1980s Australian drama.
Yes.
Just go, hey, well, just one more time, here's Gary Sweet going through hell. So yeah, no, I think that's just a person who's learnt how to ignore the news to at least watch it and say, well, I'm glad I'm not experiencing a hurricane.
But what a wanker. But I feel like what a wanker. That perspective is it just came across as really privileged, very upper class, certain type of life experience view.
Well, Socrates said, that's what a way to begin a sentence. Use that on a date. Socrates said that there is only one good, and that's knowledge, and only one evil, and that's ignorance. Which, if you look at the current situation in America, certainly, the Democrats are painting themselves as the party for knowledge, science, medicine, other things that seem to have a pretty good track record of effectiveness. Yeah. And the other party seemed to be about ignorance, embracing conspiracy theories, rejecting science, questioning medicine, saying things like the head of the Centre for Disease Control is an idiot. And so it would seem that it's good versus evil, and that seems to be related to your granddad telling his grandson, the news is just there not to inform you and give you knowledge. You can remain ignorant but still gain something from the news, and that is feeling better than those poor idiots suffering the hurricane. So it's a good way to look. Good is knowledge and bad is one nation.
Yes. In total agreement with that, Tim. In total agreement.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not that people who are ignorant are stupid. Mm-hmm. They can be very smart about it. Right. But at the end of the day, one nation is against knowledge. It's against expansion. It's against new horizons. It's against opening doors. It's against all of that junk. It wants to conserve.
And control? And control, would you say? Conserve and control?
Yeah, kind of, although they're sort of libertarian, which is we won't tell you what to do if you won't come here and try to share in the fun. But usually if you look at knowledge and expansion as being a force for good, then your life usually goes much better. If you're trying to keep the lights off, then you're bound to be disappointed because that bloody sun just keeps coming up.
That's true. But would you say, Tim, because of the internet, people can gain knowledge in inverted commas that is not necessarily anything legit and just feeding that person's already established worldview, which a lot of the time could be quite skewed or quite narrow?
Absolutely. That's where QAnon came from. Q is just somebody who is anonymous, so therefore they must be believed, who's questioning. There are people like David Icke, who doesn't think the Holocaust happened. He thinks that the world is controlled by lizard people. Seriously, these are people who are actually lizards on the inside, who are controlling the world. Any conspiracy theory is kind of is wrong. And the reason why it's bound to be wrong is simply because if there is a cabal, if there is a deep state, if there are these, hugely powerful people in dark rooms controlling everything, they can't be people, because normal people would be furiously competing against each other. If you've got multi-billionaires trying to run the world, each of those multi-billionaires wants to be the boss.
Yes.
So they would be undercutting all of the other billionaires, and then you end up with a thing, what do they call it? Oh, yeah, government. Or Wall Street.
Yeah, right.
Wall Street, they are not working together. They're working to rip each other off.
Yeah, that's true.
but it's easy. People can do, as you say, go on the internet and they can find their own little club. But at the end of the day, they're fucking wrong. And if you, dear listener, are a person who believes that 9/11 happened because it was a conspiracy, then you have to stop being stupid, because write down how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can write down how it worked, how they made it work without anybody realizing, send it to a newspaper, because you have come up with something that nobody has. The thing you need with a conspiracy, for example, Watergate, is you need people to leak.
Right.
You need people to go in front of the media and say, oh my God, I was one of the people who organised 9/11. I was the one who put the dynamite in all of the offices, and I was the one. As opposed to, I'm the ghost of the guy who flew a gigantic aeroplane loaded with fuel at high speed into the tower. Then, so explain why we've never had one person leak how it happened. Same thing with the moon landings. Why has there never been anyone from NASA coming on and sobbing and saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was all fake. I mean, I can't believe I was part of it. Thousands were. But it was all fake. Here's a photograph of me playing with a little toy of Apollo 11. And I'm so sorry. There's nobody, you moron. That's the way it works. Where is the leaker? Where is the person who says this?
Do you think, though, people believe that stuff because there's something missing in their lives?
Oh, yeah, it's called knowledge. They think it's important knowledge. I've got a very good friend who believes this junk, who sends me these links. And, I let it happen because, I guess it's good for my friend to feel that they're part of something. But it's lazy thought. Now, one way is there's a good article in the New York Times, how to deal with a friend or a relative who is like getting into all these conspiracy theories.
Right.
Like, what do you do? Like, they're very difficult to hang around because they think everybody is a moron because they can't see the real truth that I've found on some stupid website. And they said there's really not much you can do apart from sow a seed of doubt. And a good way to sow seeds of doubt is to ask questions. So the idea of lizard people, right? Lizard people, and they run the world. You bet they do. They run the world. How do they do this? Do they do it with phones? Do they write to each other? Oh no, they use mind pulses. So psychic powers, Are these measurable using any machines at all? No. But you're sure they exist? Yeah, because they talk to each other with their lizard brains. Tell me more. Then you stick a straw in your mouth and suck on your milkshake while they tie themselves in knots until they realize there's something missing here, which is common sense and acceptance of human nature. Human nature does not work as a team. Yeah, there's no conspiracy because that would mean all these people are keeping a secret together. Not one of them even going on Facebook or tweeting, oh my God, it was me. Oh my God, I've been putting chemtrails in bloody aeroplanes for years and the chemicals have dropped on everybody. One interesting thing is there aren't many jet planes flying now. You would think that the chemtrails, which have been drugging everybody, would have stopped, and therefore everybody would be sobering up from their numbed brain. But no, even without chemtrails, the world's full of idiots who don't know what's really happening. You've either got to be a celebrity chef in Byron Bay to know what's really happening. It's like, really? Yeah. Have you been to Byron Bay? Have you stopped and spoken to anybody in Byron Bay? It's just a waste of time.
Guess what, lovers? The Catchalorette, There's Always a Catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30. Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
Here is Samson the cat. Look, there's Carla.
Hi. Oh, very nice cat, Tim.
Yeah. He's a rescue cat, but I think he was brought up by the Romanov family of Russia.
Why do you say that?
Well, he looks like he's from like royalty, like he's a really classy cat. But he was found at the Chinese markets. But he's got beautiful soft fur. He looks regal, royal, handsome.
Yeah, he's a beautiful cat.
I think he ran away from, horrible rich people.
Yeah, both my doggies are rescue dogs. I'm all for the rescue animals.
Oh, I don't know why people go out and get pedigree animals. For Christ's sake, go save a rescue dog, because if you don't, the dog will be put down.
That's right.
Knowledge versus ignorance. Carry on, Carla, carry on.
Yeah, I found it very, very difficult when I went and got my two doggos, because I got them separately. But every time I went to the rescue place, I wanted to take all of the fucking animals. I found it very difficult to walk away with one at a time.
Was it because the animals were fucking? Why did you?
No.
All right. Yeah, because I won't have that in my house.
No, I was using fucking as an emphasis, Tim, not as a list.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, I've loved every millisecond of this conversation, Tim. I'm so grateful that you came on again. This has been an excellent conversation. Where can people find you on the socials?
You can go to my website, which is like working now, called www.cheekymonkeycomedy.com. Cheeky Monkey Comedy, you'll be able to get a hold of my art, buy tickets, learn about, the comedy courses that are coming here, there, everywhere. We're doing one for the US soon. Great. And or you can see me on Twitter at real Tim Ferguson, real Tim Ferguson, as opposed to fake Tim Ferguson, who's funnier than I am.
Excellent. Thanks again, Tim. This has been great.
Oh, man, Carla, always great to catch up with you. I'm looking forward to your show in Adelaide. What is it?
It is The Catchalorette.
The Catchalorette. Fantastic.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing yours. Remind us all what the title of that new show is, Tim, please.
Smashing Life, Motivation for Idiots.
I love that so much. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, Carla. You are awesome.
The Catchalorette, with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catchalorette and friends. See you next time, if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.